want to say, first of all, welcome. This is the first annual Camp of Instruction Recruit Skirmish for the Deep South region. My team had done this last year, but this is the first time as a region that we are putting this on, and we want to say thank you to all of y'all that came out today. Before we get started, restrooms. This little building over here has a women's and men's restroom on the other side, on the park side of that building. There's one on this side also, but it's out of order. So there's a male and female restroom on that side of that little building. We have a chest full of water over here, so help yourselves, stay hydrated. It's going to be not so hot and sunny today, but it's very humid and it's going to feel hot, so make sure you stay hydrated. We're going to give everybody a free lunch today, but getting ahead of myself with the schedule. So we'll talk a little bit about the schedule today, what we're going to do. So from 9 to 10, I'm going to talk. We're going to be talking about introduction, what's the N-SSA, basic firearm safety. About 10 o'clock, we're going to start up with one-on-one instruction. So the way the instruction is going to work today is we have 10 target frames. We're going to have 2 students per frame. We're going to have 1 teacher per frame, 1 safety per frame. The teacher will be working with you one-on-one. Okay, so I'm going to do some demonstration. You don't have to remember that stuff. When you get to the line, your teacher is going to be teaching you everything that you need to know. They're going to tell you when to do it. They're going to hand you the ammunition. So you're going to be under direct supervision of 2 people while you work with the firearm during one-on-one. At noon, we're going to break for lunch. I encourage you when you break for lunch, you'll notice that a lot of our regional teams have set up tents. We would like you to talk with our team people and meet the teams. After lunch, about 1 o'clock, if everybody has not gotten enough shooting, my goal is to get everybody to shoot 9 to 12 times during the individual training. If we need to do more one-on-one, we'll do that after lunch. And then we're going to do a simulated course of fire, so a simulated team event. So in the N-SSA, we have 2 kinds of competition that we do, okay? So we have individual competition where we have bullseye paper targets, okay? So you can come out here during individuals. It's $2 for your first target, $1 for however many times you want to re-enter, and they'll take your best score, right? So that's a bullseye target, and you enter for whatever gun. So in the N-SSA, we shoot rifled carbines, smoothbore muskets, rifled muskets, revolvers, single-shot pistol. Of course, you don't have to have all these things. I don't have all these things. But those are the kinds of guns that you shoot. And so you'll buy a target that corresponds to that kind of gun, and that's what you shoot. That's individual competition. You get 15 minutes to put 5 shots on a target. But the fun part of the N-SSA, we do team competitions, okay? So with the team competition, for revolver, it's a 3-person team regionally. For smoothbore, it's a 4-person team. For musket and carbine regionally, it's a 5-person team. And so you'll have 5 people standing at a pigeon frame just like this, and then you have 5 minutes to clear that board if you can. And then whoever's got the highest, best time, shortest time, they win medals. So we'll be doing that this afternoon. After you guys have been trained how to shoot, we will have a simulated 5-minute course of fire where we'll break you guys up into teams, and you guys can have a 5-minute go at a pigeon board and see what you can do. And then we'll have medals for the first, second, and third place winners. And then after that, we'll do a closing ceremony where we'll have, like I said, the medals for folks. And then afterwards, you can hang around and talk with our folks. All right, so introduction. My name is Steve Sheldon. I had a name tag like y'all do, but I'm sweating so bad today that it's gone. Sorry. So just look for the only guy in a union hat, and then I'm Steve. All right, so what's that?
It's still stuck on you, by the way.
Well, okay. It's gone off about 3 times, so we'll see. All right, so I have been shooting in the N-SSA about 13 years now. For the last 8 of those, I have been team captain for the 4th Louisiana Delta Rifles. I have just left the Delta Rifles. Sadly, I did not want to, but I feel like we are growing the region and we need more spots for people to join teams. So I'm now in the process of forming the first union team that has existed in the Deep South region in probably 20 years. So if you're interested in the union team, come look me up. That's a little bit about me. Also, I'm an NRA certified muzzleloading instructor. We have another NRA certified instructor here today, Mr. Eddie Lawley. There he is in the back. Mr. Eddie is also our regional inspector. So the regional inspector will be coming around and during normal skirmishes, he might be randomly inspecting firearms to make sure that they meet the N-SSA specifications and trigger pull and that sort of thing. The rest of the folks that you see here today, anybody that's in a uniform, is a member of the North-South Skirmish Association in the Deep South region. So we are the Deep South region. The N-SSA, so what is the N-SSA? I'm sure a lot of you have been pestered by my emails. You've probably figured this out already, but the N-SSA is a 501c3 nonprofit. It was founded in 1950 by two guys who liked Civil War guns. And they were like, hey, let's get together and shoot them. And they did. And they thought, this is really cool. And then they told their buddies. And they formed two teams. And they were like, let's get together and have a shoot-off. Well, the next thing you know, this thing grew to 13 regions in the eastern United States. At its high water mark, it had over 5,000 members in it. So that's the N-SSA. We focus on competition shooting of firearms of the time period of the American Civil War. Like I said, we shoot rifled muskets, smoothbore muskets, repeating carbines, breech-loading carbines, single-shot smoothbore pistols, revolvers, mortars, and artillery. Okay, so this is actually a certified range for artillery. We haven't done it since I've been here. I've not seen them shoot it here, but there's another range in the region that we have. But anyway, those are all the kinds of activities that you can do in the N-SSA. Obviously, you don't have to do all of those things, right? It's not like cowboy action shooting where you have to go acquire an arsenal before you can participate. You could just have a revolver and get started doing this game, right? So the Deep South region was founded in 1979. We currently have 10 teams in the region, and the new one's forming now, as I said, so that'll be 11 teams in the region. To join the N-SSA, this is a free event. We're just putting this on for anybody that wants to learn how to shoot a musket. This is something totally no obligation for you guys, but we are hoping that you like what you see today and that you guys would like to join the N-SSA and do what we do. So there are two ways to join the N-SSA if you're interested in doing so. They have an individual membership, so you can join as an individual, and you have up to a year to find a team, or for a team to find you, however the case may be. And you can shoot as an individual. So as an individual member, you can shoot in individual competitions at regional or national skirmishes, and you can shoot on a team if that team needs a pickup. Okay, so a lot of teams will come out here and you never know till the day of whether you have enough people to make a team or not, and sometimes you're shorthanded and then you're looking for a pickup. So as an individual, if there's a team that's looking for a pickup, you might fall in with them for the day and shoot musket with them or whatever. So that's one option, is to join as an individual, but the real thrust of the N-SSA, and in fact until 3 years ago this was your only option, was to join as a team. Okay, so typically the N-SSA is very team-centered. So you will find a team, people that you like to hang out with, or maybe you live nearby them, or you feel some affiliation for their team or whatever, and you join a team. A word about teams. Don't let the team names confuse you, right? My team that I just left was the 4th Louisiana Delta Rifles. I've never been to Louisiana, okay? so you don't have to live in the name of the team. So like, I'm forming the 1st Wisconsin. You don't have to live in Wisconsin to be on the 1st Wisconsin. It doesn't matter. The team name is just whatever struck the captain's fancy when they formed this team however many years ago. So don't let the team names fool you. All that really matters is, can you come to Brierfield? Because all of our skirmishes, except one, are held here. So we typically shoot in February, March, April, June, and August here. And then there's a November skirmish up at Nathan Bedford Forest State Park in Eva, Tennessee. That's the November skirmish. There's also a spring and a fall national competition up in Winchester, Virginia, which you don't have to go to. A lot of people do like to go, but that's completely up to you if you wanted to do something like that. I recommend going. It's really cool if you ever get the opportunity to go to the nationals. nowhere else will you see live artillery and cannon fire like you do at the Nationals. Those guys are more accurate at 200 yards with a cannon than I am at 100 yards with a musket. So that's a little bit about the N-SSA and about our region. Let's see, is Lanny Harrison around?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is our regional commander, so we defer all our important questions to Mr. Harrison.
We're glad to see y'all. We need to thank Steve for putting this on. He's put an awful lot of work into it. I know these guys have loaded ammunition for you and brought guns for you to shoot.
All right, let's see here. I've covered everything about the N-SSA. I think so. Okay, so now we're going to get into some serious stuff. We're going to talk about basic firearm safety. Anybody who has never fired a firearm before? Didn't think so. It's not common to find. We're going to assume anyway that you don't know anything about anything, okay? So this is not meant to be condescending in any way or to be talking down to folks. We're just going to cover the basics. It's always good, no matter how experienced you are, to go over these basic 4 firearm rules. It's a good refresher, even if you're an expert in these kinds of things. So safety is paramount in everything that we do out here. Okay, we're all about having fun, having a good time, but safety is everything. While you're shooting, either during individuals, or whether it's today or during team competition, we have people on the line whose job is to monitor safety. They are called safeties. Okay, it won't be uncommon for a safety to issue some piece of advice to you while you're shooting. They do it to me, okay? So this is not to be offended or take that personal. If they come up and say, hey, you might want to watch your fingers while you're loading, you're getting a little bit close to that muzzle, or they'll say, make sure you're back off the line, or whatever the advice is, it's all in the spirit of safety, okay? So, that's why they're there, and that's what they're there to make sure that you stay safe. So, never be offended if some safety has some safety comment for you. It's all to make sure that we stay safe. All right, basic firearm safety. There are 4 basic rules of firearm safety. Any one of these rules can save you, okay? You have to pretty much violate all 4 to have an accident with a firearm, all right? So these are the 4 basic rules of firearm safety. Number 1, always keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction, okay? So that means whenever you're handling a firearm, you should imagine that there's a laser beam coming out of that muzzle, okay? And wherever that laser beam is going, you need to be thinking about, is there a person where that laser beam is going, okay? What constitutes a safe direction may change depending on the environment that you're in, okay? If you live in a 2-story house and you're downstairs and there's people upstairs, then up may not be the safe direction in your home. Because in most houses, unless you get lucky and hit a stud, a bullet's going to go clean through just about everything else, all right? Likewise, if you're upstairs and there's people downstairs, then down may not be the safest direction. So you always need to be cognizant of your environment. So out here, up is typically the safest direction. Down is good too, but down, you could end up blasting gravel everywhere if you shoot it into the ground. Up is pretty safe. As you can see, it was pretty safe to somebody. It looks like about 69 caliber. So always keep the firearms pointed in a safe direction. All right. Number 2, we're going to treat all guns as if they were loaded. Okay. It's a very paramount piece of safety rule here. Okay. When you pick up a firearm, even if you just saw somebody unload that firearm and you're like, I know that gun is safe. I just saw the guy shoot the gun. It only holds 1 bullet. It can't be loaded. It doesn't matter. We treat them as if they were loaded. The reason you do that is the minute you start getting complacent, okay, and you think, oh, well, I know it's not loaded, that will be the one time when it turns out it was and you have a problem, okay? So you treat every firearm as if it was loaded. It doesn't matter whether you just saw it shot, whether you just unloaded it, whether somebody else just unloaded it and dropped the ramrod and you saw it was unloaded and they handed it to you, at all times we will assume that the firearm is loaded and treat it accordingly, okay? Rule number 3, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So when you're handling a firearm, and by the way, when we are moving firearms around here, we're going to be moving firearms from the benches to the line and back again. This is how we should move them around whenever we're moving these firearms, okay? You hold them like this, and that way the muzzle's always up, and we move them around. So we're not going to, carry them around like a soldier, and we're not going to walk around like this, right? We're going to walk around like this. This is how we're going to carry them, all right? So finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So that means whenever you're working on one of these firearms or walking around with it or handling it, your finger should never be on the trigger until you're at the line and you're aiming and you're ready to shoot. All right? So this is what you do. Now there's one exception with muzzle-loading arms. All right? Muzzle-loading arms, their safety is a half-cock position. So if you're at half-cock or if you're at full cock and you need to relieve the hammer, you have to pull the trigger, okay? So we never drop the hammer on a musket with a cap on it, obviously. So if it was capped for some reason and you needed to lower that hammer, you need to get that cap off of there. Because if the hammer is sitting on a cap and something strikes that hammer, it will go off, all right? So we never rest the hammer on a cap. So if you've got a hammer that's at full cock or half cock and you need to relieve that hammer, then you have to pull the trigger to do that. So you will pull back the hammer, pull the trigger, and let it down. But that's the only time that you'll be putting your finger on the trigger with a muzzleloader if you're not actually shooting it. But the rest of the time, the finger stays off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. All right, rule number 4. Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it. Now this is more for hunting, but it does apply out here, as I'll get into in a second. But let's say you're out hunting, and there's a ridge line in front of you, and the most magical deer you've ever seen comes walking across that ridge line. He's got 100 points and a unicorn spike, and it's the most perfect deer you've ever seen. Do you take that shot? You're like, I can't miss. Do I take that shot? No, right? Because that deer is on a ridge line, okay? And if you miss that deer, you have no idea what's downrange on the other side of that hill. And even if you hit it, okay, that bullet could go through that deer, and you don't know what's on the other side of it. So not only do you have to know your target, you have to know what lies beyond it. So at this range, we know that we have a large hill behind it. But even so, before we take to the range safety officer has to look down here and make certain that there's nobody hiding out behind a target frame, okay? So you have to make sure that you got a clear range. So you need to know what your target is and what's beyond your target. Knowing what your target is. Well, out here it's pretty obvious. We're shooting at things that are designed to shoot at. Well, when I was a kid, I was out hunting with my dad, and we're sitting there in the woods, and we're waiting for the deer to come along, and we were like, shh, we hear something. It sounds like 4 legs walking through the leaves. Well, it was 4 legs walking through the leaves. It was 2 people coming out of the woods, right? So you never shoot at a sound or something that might have been, a deer. I thought it was, and it turns out it was somebody's dog. I used to live up north for a while, and there was a farmer field, and all his donkey, he had a donkey out in that field, and his cow, he had gone out there with orange spray paint and painted mule on the side of his donkey and cow on the side of his cows because people were not paying attention to what they were shooting at, all right? So, you know your target and what lies beyond it. Those are your 4 rules of firearm safety. Are there any questions? Any questions at all about firearm safety? Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to have a little bit of discussion about muskets and how to shoot them and so on. I don't expect you to remember any of this. This is going to be an overview. I'm going to demonstrate what we're going to do today, just so that you have an idea of what we're going to do today. But if you don't remember this stuff, that's okay. That's what the teacher's going to be for when you're on the line. They're going to be walking you through this step by step. A little bit about the history of Civil War era firearms and what made them kind of revolutionary of the era. All right, so muzzleloading muskets have been known for hundreds of years, okay? But for most of that time period, they used smoothbore muskets. Now, rifles were invented around the 1600s, I think. So rifles were known, okay? They were known even in Revolutionary War time period, but they were very slow to load because in order to get the bullet to take up the rifling, you pretty much had to hammer it into the rifling. So you'd use a patched ball and a starter and hammer it into that rifling, okay? So it was slow to load, so only specialized military troops would be issued rifles. Just about all your line infantry had smoothbore muskets because they were much faster to load. Even as they fouled up with black powder residue, they were much faster to load. So that was true up until about 1840. Around 1840, there were a series of technological innovations by a guy named Minier and Delvine, and there were a bunch of folks involved in this. But the upshot of it is they figured out how to make a bullet that was either hollow, which is called an expanding ball, or it would collapse like an accordion. And so what that allowed you to do is have a bullet that was undersized to your barrel, and you'd load it very easily, and when the charge went off, it would inflate that bullet like a balloon. Okay, so you'll see some of these bullets you're using today have a hollow cavity. It's called an expanding ball because it inflates. Or it will collapse on itself like an accordion, and when that happens, it bumps up. That lead has to go somewhere. So when it collapses on itself, it expands and takes up the rifling. So that's a compression style bullet. So those two bullets came about around 1840 and revolutionized military musketry. It's what allowed the use of rapid fire, 3 or 4 shots a minute, rifled arms, and rifled arms became the standard issue for infantry as opposed to smoothbore. There were exceptions. There were troops throughout the Civil War that preferred smoothbore muskets. They liked to use sometimes buck and ball, which is a big ball and some buckshot in there, or even just buckshot, because at the ranges they were engaging, they felt like that was a more effective thing for them. All right, so let's talk about the parts of a musket. This is a carbine, so we'll have different lengths of firearm out here today. I forget what the length designations are. 33 inches, is that carbine? 25? Yeah, I don't remember. So the short guns are carbines. They were useful for soldiers on horseback. A little bit longer ones are rifles, and the really long 3-band ones are muskets. The 3-band muskets were designed for troops 2 in a row so that you could shoot over the shoulder of the front rank, right? That's why they're so long. Okay, so parts of it's the same. It's going to be the same whether we're talking carbines or muskets. All of the guns that we're doing today are muzzle-loading 58 caliber guns. All right, so this is the barrel. The wood part is the stock. This is the lock. This is the cone or the nipple is what the percussion cap goes on. This is the hammer. This is the muzzle. And these are the sights. So front sight, rear sight. Some guns have different graduated sights, some do not, and then you just have to use Kentucky windage. All right, need to grab some safety glasses. Speaking of safety equipment, we have safety glasses and earplugs for everyone today. They are required when you're on the line. You'll probably want them even when you're off the line if people are shooting and you're sitting back here watching. I have 1 pair of ear muffs if earplugs don't work for you. I have 2 pairs of ear muffs. And you're going to shoot a musket. The first thing we do is called snapping caps. And the reason why we do this is when you clean one of these guns, there is a hole drilled in the barrel back here in the breech that goes from the cone or nipple into the powder chamber, okay? That's how the fire from the percussion cap gets to the powder charge. But when you clean these guns, or you oil them for storage, very often that fire channel will get full of that goo, okay? And so if you try to go shoot your gun, it won't go off. You'll have a fouled musket. If that happens, the safety will raise a red flag, and then we have a CO2 bottle. We'll blow that charge out if we have a fouled musket. Hopefully that won't happen to us today. But anyway, when you come to the line, and you are instructed to do so, the very first thing you will do is snap caps. So what snapping caps means is you will take a percussion cap, or it will be handed to you out there, and you will cap the musket. So whenever you cap the musket, you want to make sure that you hold your musket horizontal to the ground. We don't cap it pointing at the sky, because if it were to go off, it will launch over my berm. And so we want to make sure that if it was to go off, it goes into the backstop. So we do not sky the musket. The range clear on the left. The range clear on the right. The range is clear. The range is now hot. All right, so your first shot when you snap caps is always going to be from the shoulder. That is so that if this musket were loaded, I have full control over it. So it's not going to be a surprise. All right? So first one from the shoulder. After that, we will fire 2 more caps into the ground. What you're looking for is for a leaf or a piece of grass to move. When you see that leaf move, you know that you've got a clear fire channel. I always do 3. It's a minimum of 2, but I don't recommend trying to cheap out on that. There's nothing worse than not snapping enough caps. The bell goes off, and you're fouled from the get-go. You've just hamstrung your team. So I like to cap 3 times. That is snapping caps. Once you have snapped caps, then you can load your firearm. So loading. You will be presented a cartridge by your teacher. Come on, cartridge. This is what we call a cartridge in the North-South Skirmish Association. Historically, they would have used paper cartridges, okay? The U.S. style of paper cartridge was just an envelope to hold the black powder and hold the bullet. You tear the tail off, pour in the powder, break it open and take out the bullet and load it. You can use that style of cartridge, but most people in the N-SSA use these plastic tubes. And it's just an expediency, okay? It's just something that's reusable, unlike a paper cartridge that's disposable. So this is what we use. It contains the gunpowder, and the bullet is stuck in there like a cork. All right, so loading. I'm going to do this 2 times. I'm going to load and fire over here, and I'm going to then come do it over here so that everybody can see this, because it's very important. So when loading, I like to set the musket on my foot just so that I'm not grinding the butt into this gravel. Okay? Yep.
Tell them you're doing this for demonstration. They be facing downrange.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? So what, y'all will be facing this way, right? Now, obviously, I've got to show y'all what I'm doing. Okay? So, whenever you're handling a musket, whether this is a short one or a long one, you want to keep this arm straight. You're stiff arming the musket. That way it's impossible to get your head over that muzzle. Okay? So you're going to stiff arm that musket. Okay? You're going to take your cartridge and your 2 fingers. If you're left-handed, this is just all reversed for you. Okay? You'll take your cartridge, you'll come over to these 2 fingers, and you'll wiggle that bullet out. Okay? So now I have a cartridge full of powder, and I have my bullet sitting in my 2 fingers here. I'm going to hold this cartridge by the end, by the bottom of the cartridge. I'm going to come in from the side, and I'm going to tip this into the barrel at about a 45-degree angle, and that's it. You do not do this, okay? If you do this, your hand is now over that muzzle. And we have something that's peculiar to muzzleloaders called a cook-off. It happens. It's happened to me 3 times in 13 years. It's happened to my daughter, and we now have a neat little black powder tattoo, but we still have our fingers because we didn't put our fingers over the muzzle. Okay, what happens is sometimes when you're loading these things rapidly, if there's a smoldering ember in there, when you pour that powder in, it may go off during the pouring of the powder. It's rare, but it can happen. That's why we dump that powder in at an angle. You don't get your hand over that muzzle. That way, if you have a cook-off, it just sends the tube flying. Nothing bad happens, okay? So, when you bring that powder in at an angle, do not get over the muzzle. The safeties will watch and they will comment if you do it. And in the heat of competition, it happens. People do it, and the safeties will call you on it. So don't get offended if it happens. When you're done loading, throw the tube on the ground. And then you take your bullet. You're going to hold your bullet with 2 fingers, pointy side up, okay? And you're going to come in from the side of the muzzle, okay? So you're going to come in from the side of the muzzle, and you're going to set that bullet in the muzzle, in the bore. And then your fingers are going to go down the barrel, okay? So you come in from the side and down the barrel, okay? At no time should your fingers be over that bullet. You do not use your thumb to push it down the barrel. You do not use your fingers or your hand or anything else. You will set that bullet in the muzzle. Now, this is a clean gun, so the bullet's already disappeared. Most of the time, that bullet's just going to be sitting there, okay? So at that time, you will take the ramrod. We will use these bayonets to have the ramrod sitting out for you. We do this just it's faster during shooting. You can return it to the gun if you want, but we typically rest them on the bayonet. You will take your ramrod and you will tap it until you hear a change in sound. It will be noticeable when you get to the bottom. And that bullet must be seated on the powder, okay? If it only goes this far down, you need to call your teacher or your safety. It must go to the bottom. You cannot shoot these bullets with that bullet not seated on the powder. That is a bore obstruction, okay? In the best case scenario, you will ring the barrel. It will bulge the barrel where that bullet is, and that barrel's ruined. Worst case, the barrel blows up, okay? So you never shoot one of these guns unless that bullet is all the way seated down on the powder. And you will hear the difference, and when you get experience with your own guns, you'll know where that ramrod ends up when you have a loaded musket. Once you have loaded, we will cap. We bring the gun to the horizontal so it's pointing at the backstop, and we will cap the musket. You will be given the cap or instructed when to cap. Once you have capped the musket, this gun is now loaded and ready to fire. You will notice that I went straight to full cock. I don't use the half cock on my guns. Some people do. You can go to half cock for capping the musket. I go straight to full cock. The reason is many of these reproduction guns, the tumblers aren't cut correctly, and at half cock there's just not enough room to get the cap on and off. So I'll go to full cock, but you can use half cock if you want to. Anyway, once you've capped this gun, it is now ready to fire. It will go off when you pull that trigger. So you want to take a sight picture, which I'll discuss in a second and show you a picture. You want to take a sight picture. You want to carefully aim and squeeze. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. I missed. All right, so that is how to load snap caps, load, and fire the musket. So I'm going to do this again over here for everybody else to see what we did. Any questions so far? All right, I'm going to do it one more time down here. Yeah, thank you. All right. We will snap caps. First one from the shoulder. Second one in the dirt. Cartridge. Bring it over to your fingers. Wiggle out the bullet. Take your cartridge. Come over to the muzzle. Tip it in at a 45-degree angle. That's it. Bullet. 2 fingers. Pointy side up. We come in from the side and set it in the bore. It will probably sit there unless it's clean, and then it may disappear down the barrel. Ramrod. When you're working the ramrod, 2 fingers is all you need, okay? Never put your hand over that ramrod. If it goes off, it'll launch that ramrod right through your hand, okay? So only come at it from the side. Cap. Aim. Missed again. So now we will do what's called safety off the line. So once you're done shooting, a safety will come over and will witness you do these things. So just like we cleared the musket to start shooting, we will now clear off the line. We will snap caps again. First shot, always from the shoulder. And then the safety's going to want to see dirt move on the ground. The safety will then say you're clear or that the line is clear, and then you can come off the line. When you come off the line, you're going to carry the gun like this. You're going to come back to these benches, and you're going to set the gun there, and then we're going to clean. And we'll go over that in a minute. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about sight pictures so we know how to aim. And hopefully y'all can aim better than I do. So most of these guns are going to have some variation of sight that looks like this. Okay, you're going to have a rear sight that's got a notch in it, and then you're going to have a front sight.
Should mention, you never come off the line unless the safety has cleared you off the line.
That's right.
Never walk off the line.
That's right. Now you can't leave the line unless you've been safetied off the line. All right, so your front sight post is the little one inside here, okay? So to aim, you're going to line up the top of that front sight with the top of those rear sight, and that is the sight picture that you're looking for, okay? Now, different people set up their guns differently. We can't be exactly certain how any particular gun out here is going to aim for you, but in general, this is how you're going to want your sights to look. This would be the target, okay? So this is called a 6 o'clock hold. This is how I set up all my guns. So the sight, the front sight post, is going to be under the thing that I'm shooting at, okay? That's called a 6 o'clock hold. Other people don't like that. Some people like to put their post right on the target, okay? So it just depends on your personal preference, and because we're shooting a variety of guns here, can't be certain, you know, what your sight picture is going to be. However, we're only shooting at 25 yards today. Typically, we shoot these guns at 50 and 100. We set them up at 25 so that it's a little bit easier for folks, except for me, evidently. So.
Steve,
Yep.
you can say that's not your gun you were shooting, right?
Oh, right, that was somebody else's gun.
No, they might have it set to 6 o'clock or dead on hold.
Right.
They're not doing their hold, you're not either.
Or maybe I had the 100-yard sights on. Unfortunately, that is mine, and that is my most accurate carbine, too. However, in my defense, I have to put a little reticule on my, or aperture on my shooting glasses, and they're over in my shooting box. I just grabbed some. So the front sight post is very blurry for me right now. That's my excuse. So, all right, so let's talk about trigger pull. All right, so when you go to shoot a firearm, you want to squeeze the trigger. That's the story, right? We'll get into that in just a minute here. So you want to think BRAS, B-R-A-S. Breathe, relax, aim, squeeze. So when you are shooting, and this goes for any kind of firearm, when you're ready to shoot, take a big breath and relax, okay? Breathe, relax, okay? I know that a lot of people are going to be keyed up, adrenaline going, because this is something new and we don't know what we're doing and we're learning, but you want to relax. And then you want to aim, you want to get that sight picture going and aim at your target, and then you want to squeeze that trigger. You don't want to jerk the trigger, you want to slowly squeeze the trigger. You should be mildly surprised when it goes off. Now, this is the way they teach how to shoot firearms. In reality, when you're shooting offhand, nobody sits perfectly still. So you will notice while you're aiming that you're wiggling around and over there and over here, and finally I arrive under the target. You will have to learn, it's an acquired skill, when to pull that trigger when you drift under the target. At least I do. I can't stand still as a rock, and I doubt any of you will either. So there's a little bit of exception to that, but generally speaking, think BRAS. Breathe, relax, aim, squeeze. All right, we talked about clearing off the line. You cannot leave the line unless you have demonstrated the gun is unloaded to a safety. This does not negate the rule to always assume all firearms are loaded. This is simply a safety precaution that we do to make sure that we don't have any loaded muskets that are off the firing line. All right, first cap's always from the shoulder, second cap in the dirt. Fouled muskets, I talked about that a little bit. If you have a musket that won't go off, we will fire a couple caps on it to try to make it go off. Oftentimes, if you put 2 or 3 caps on it, eventually some fire will get to that powder and it'll go off. You want to be ready for it, if it does. If we can't get it to go off, it will be a fouled musket. You'll tell somebody, tell your teacher, tell a safety, and they will raise a red flag for a fouled musket, and we'll bring a CO2 bottle and blow it out. And then once you've blown it off, then you have to clear the musket as usual. We will then talk about cleaning. So I guess I'll go ahead and do this now. All right, so if you can't see, come gather around so you can see what I'm doing here. So on all these benches, you're going to find some packages of medical gauze, okay? I find this is very cheap, expedient for cleaning patches, works really well. I highly recommend if you use cleaning patches or medical gauze that you buy synthetic fiber, not cotton. Cotton fiber smolders, synthetic fibers melt. If you put cotton fibers down your bore, they may very well smolder and cause a cook-off. Synthetic fibers, I think, are less likely. And you'll notice this gauze pulls fuzz very easily. So that's why I use the synthetic stuff. All right, you'll need a cleaning rod. My staff, I don't see a lot of cleaning rods out. Oh, there's some there. We're going to need as many cleaning rods as we can get, staff folks. So if you've got more cleaning rods, we're going to need more of them. I only see 2 on this bench. All right, so you're going to need a cleaning rod. We may have to share, but you take your cleaning patch. These little bottles of green fluid. This is simple green. It's just a cleaning solution. Don't drink it. Take your patch and wet it down. Open up the patch, put half of it over the muzzle, take your cleaning rod, put the jag over the patch, and down the barrel it goes. When you get to the bottom, twist the handle. The reason is the rifling of the barrel has a tendency to unscrew the cleaning jag. So if you just go up and down with that cleaning rod, it has a tendency to unthread that jag, and then it'll be stuck down in your barrel, and that can be fun to get out again. So when you get to the bottom stroke, thread it back on a little bit so it's not coming off. It also helps to half-cock the gun and get rid of that percussion cap so that you don't pull a vacuum when you're trying to work this thing. So you can hear it. Hear it? It's blowing air out of that cone down there. All right, so you're going to work this up and down a few times. It can get real dirty, so I've got towels out here for everybody. Pull it out. Flip it over and use the other half. Make sure you get the top end of it too. The whole bore. Okay. I'm not going to do any more. We don't have to get these things spotless in between courses of fire. It's not necessary. All right. After you use wet patches, you must use dry patches. If you don't use dry patches, you will have a wet bore. The next person that puts powder down that barrel is going to have wet, fouled powder. It may cause a cook-off. Happened to my daughter. For some reason, when I taught her to shoot muskets, this was recently, like last November, she did not get the dry patch instruction. I don't know why. And so she had not been dry patching after cleaning with a wet patch. Well, she went to load and noticed tons of smoke coming out of the barrel, which should have been a big clue. But anyway, she was loading and it cooked off because she had not dried out her bore. So you're going to use a dry patch, cover the muzzle, just like the wet patch. Flip it over, use the other half. I'll run another one just to make sure it's good and dry. These patches are super cheap, so don't worry about using them up. All right, so that's it. Plenty dry, and now it'll be good for the next person to safely shoot. Of course, there's probably liquid in that fire channel now, which is why we're gonna snap caps as we talked about before. So that's it for cleaning. This is, of course, just field cleaning. This is what we do in between our courses of fire. We will clean the bore, but obviously when you get home, there would be a lot more meticulous cleaning going on, where you gotta clean all the residue off around the cone and you know, do a thorough cleaning job. Use a brass bristle brush and all that. But for what we're doing here, in between courses of fire, that is sufficient for cleaning. Any questions on cleaning? All right. What time we got here? All I have for discussion here this morning, are there any questions on firearm safety, N-SSA, cleaning, any questions at all? All right, so what we're going to do here in about 10 minutes is I'm going to get my instructors together. You guys are going. We're going to break you up. I got to get a count. Let's see, how many folks do we have here? Let me see hands of my shooters today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We should have 22.
We have 22 shooters. Thank you, Lefty. Okay. Yeah, we need to go over safety with them. Yeah. So 24. So 12 shooters at a time. So we're going to do this in 2 relays. Man, if we only had 20. So I can accommodate 20 shooters on the line. So we're going to do 12 shooters at a time. Okay? So we're going to be relay 1 and relay 2. So relay 1, let's see my hands again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those of you that I just called out, you're going to be relay 1. Okay? If if I pointed at you. So 12 of you guys are relay 1, and then we'll have relay 2 follow up. The way this is gonna work is when you are instructed, relay 1 will tell you to go pick a firearm, okay? And then you'll come to these firearms here, and whichever one you want to shoot is the one you'll pick. Now, there are a couple of guns here where the owners of these guns want to follow them. You know, they want to stay on top of those guns because they mean a lot to them, or they're shooting precision custom-made ammunition. Most of us size our ammunition to our bores. So in the military, you would issue 5.75 ammo, and whatever your bore was is what it was, and it shot as well as it could. In competition, we will generally use some pin gauges to find out exactly what our bore size is. And what's stamped on the barrel is almost never what the bore size actually is, okay? You look at most of these guns and it'll say .577. They are almost never .577. So I've got guns that are 5.76, 5.78, and 5.77. So my guns are all different sizes. So I will use a sizing die to size my bullets to within 1/1000th of an inch of my bore so that they're very accurate for competition shooting. But for today, most of the ammo out here I've instructed to be brought out at .575 inches, which just about all these guns will digest. However, a couple of these guns, the shooters brought out precision fitted ammo. So if you want to try something that's set up for target shooting specifically, you might want to try one of those guns. If you grab one of those guns, you need to make sure that the correct ammo goes with that gun. And the owner of that gun is going to be responsible for making sure that happens. Hope staff all heard that again for the second time today. So, when you go to the line, you need to take an ammo box with you. Whatever the ammo is that's sitting in front of that gun, the gun and the ammo go to the line. That way, when you shoot that ammunition, when you're done, you can put the tubes back in that box so that person gets their tubes back again. Also, all the ammo boxes should be labeled. My staff, please listen up. Make sure that your shooting boxes are labeled with your name and the size of the ammunition that's in it. So if you've got ammo boxes out here, make sure that your name is on it and that you've got the size of your ammunition on it. I got a bunch of name tags down here if you need to do that, and pens also. So you'll grab a gun, you'll grab some ammo, and you will head to the line. You'll see there are 20 bayonets out here. We're going to have 2 shooters per frame. You'll just find a place. Some of these guns, you might, like I said, you might have to follow a particular teacher to the line with that gun because they want to keep their eye on that gun. But otherwise, just go find yourself a spot on the line and wait. And the teachers and safeties will then tell you what to do from there. Yes?
You might point out that during the shooting, all the ammo boxes are closed, cap boxes, you
Yes.
don't leave live powder, any kind of thing out here at radio.
That's right.
A lot of people do.
Right? So what he's saying is, anytime you fetch ammunition or percussion caps out of a storage container, when you're done, close that container. That way, no stray sparks can get in there, or if the ammo box gets dumped over, we don't have ammo going everywhere. It's just another safety thing, right? Everything's about safety.
And one other thing, these guns that you see out here are huge investments for one of the shooters. These tables are older than me, I think. Somebody can bump into them. They didn't cut the notches very deep. If you make the table do this, you're gonna have dominoes, they're very expensive muskets, all of them hitting the ground like that.
Right.
Don't bump in the table, sit on it, shake it, do anything, it's all not.
Yeah, we would appreciate, some degree of care here. All these guns are volunteered, right? All of these guns belong to people in the region that have volunteered their equipment so that you guys have guns to shoot today. So as Hoot said, we want to, have a care because we don't want to damage anybody's near and dear to them firearms, right? All right. Any other questions? Staff, I've got a box of percussion caps at the end of this bench down here. Staff only. You guys are be in charge of your own percussion caps for your students. So my teachers will pick up percussion caps and you will hand them to the students. Same thing with ammunition. Only the instructors, your teachers, will be handling the ammunition while you're out here during